Welcome back, friends. Today I'll be comparing and reviewing two different student grade watercolor paint sets. I chose these two because they're fairly similar in price. They both include 12 colors and they're both student grade paints. So we'll be checking out the Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolor set of 12 and the Van Gogh set of 12 watercolor paints. Now both of them come in these similarly shaped plastic palette boxes. We'll start with the Winsor & Newton one. There's a little button here that says press to open, and you do have to press it fairly hard to get it to open. One of the downsides of this one. You have to press right where the letters say press here. But there are the paints. You can see it's a lovely selection of 12 colors. It actually comes with a size 3 Winsor & Newton Cotman brush. This set is currently $34.71 on Amazon, although the prices are always fluctuating, so that's something to keep in mind with these. Something I like about this set is that it comes with this adjustable palette. You can actually take this part out and attach it here. It's a little flimsy. I'm not sure if I would actually use it that way, but it's nice to have that option. You can see I have already used this set. You'll notice there is a little bit of staining on the plastic palette. That's pretty normal with plastic, to be honest, especially since these are student grade paints and they do have to cut the cost somewhere. Now, what's the difference between student grade paints and professional grade paints? Well, it's in the quality of the pigment colors. So with any student grade line of paints, they're going to have just a little more filler in them, such as dextrin, to kind of bulk out the paint, and slightly less pigment than would be in the professional line of paints. They also use slightly cheaper pigments, so you're not going to see pure cadmium or cobalt pigments in any student grade line of paints. So that's the main difference. I think it's cool that brands like Royal Talens, which makes the Van Gogh paints, and Winsor & Newton have come out with these wonderful student lines of paints that are actually really high quality, but much more affordable than the professional line. So let's check these out. I'm going to open up the Van Gogh set next. This one, the palette is a little cheaper. You can tell because it does not snap shut like the Winsor & Newton one. It doesn't stay shut at all. In fact, it just flips right open. But you can see it's a lovely selection again of 12 colors. Also comes with a brush. I like that this one's a little bigger. A size 6 to me is much more usable than a tiny little size 3. But there they are, the two sets side by side. This one also comes with a sponge. Isn't that nice? Now the Van Gogh set is slightly more expensive. On Blick's site right now, this one is $36.17. So they're very similar in price range. The main difference is that the tube sizes are different. These are 10 milliliters and these are 8 milliliters. So the Cotman set, slightly smaller tubes of paint. Now what we're going to do today is do some pigment swatches and analyze all the colors in these sets, and you can decide for yourself which one you like better. Honestly, I think it just comes down to color selection and which palette you like better. So I'm going to show you guys, I have this painter's color diary. I got this from Jerry's Artorama, and these are just so awesome for doing color swatches of your watercolors. You can see I've done a few here already. It's actually 100% cotton paper, which is a huge plus. And so we're going to do our swatches in the very back. I've already labeled all the colors. We're going to put them side by side. So let's do some swatches now and we'll see what these paints look like on the paper. With both of these paint brands, pigment information is clearly labeled on the tube, along with the light fast rating, which I think is really important. Just a brief history of the Van Gogh brand for you. The Royal Talens company has been manufacturing art supplies since 1899, and the Van Gogh brand was launched in 1963, so it's been around for quite a while. According to the Royal Talens website, Van Gogh watercolors are a student and artist level range of paints featuring brilliant, transparent, and intense colors with high tinting strength. Most colors are rated with the highest degree of light fastness, which is described as 100 plus years under museum conditions, and there are a few colors rated just one step below that, 25 to 100 years under museum conditions. Thanks to the purity and uniform viscosity, these watercolors are easy to work with and easy to mix. Proudly produced in Holland with stringent quality control for consistent experience with every purchase. Now there are 72 colors in the Van Gogh collection. Royal Talens also makes a professional line of watercolors called Rembrandt. Let me know in the comments, by the way, if you'd like to see a review on the Rembrandt line of paints. As you know, Cotman paints are the student grade line of paints by Winsor & Newton, which also makes a professional line of watercolors. Like the Van Gogh line, Cotman paints include both traditional pigments and reliable synthetic colors that replace some of the more rare and expensive pigments used in the professional line. There are only 40 colors available in the Cotman line versus 72 in Van Gogh. Now, Winsor & Newton has a long and fascinating history, which is proudly displayed on a timeline on their website. The company was founded in 1832 when a scientist and an artist partnered up at Rathbone Place in London. In 1835, the company developed the world's first glycerin-based moist watercolors. They were the first to publish the composition and permanence of their colors in 1892, which established an important precedent for other brands to follow. Because Winsor & Newton has been an innovator for so many years in the world of art, you can see why it's one of the most respected brands in the art world. Now, although the company is based in the UK, the Cotman paints are actually made in China. The professional line is made in France. I'm not sure at what point the manufacture of the Cotman line was switched from Europe to China, but it hasn't seemed to hurt the quality or success of their paints. Here they are, all the colors swatched out. So I did Van Gogh and then Cotman and then Van Gogh and Cotman. I tried to put the colors side by side that were most similar, and there were only two colors that shared the exact same pigment number. That was burnt sienna. They both use PR, which is pigment red, 101. I thought that was a little interesting. My favorite burnt sienna is by Daniel Smith and it's PBR7. It's a brown pigment. These are both the same pigment, but look at how different they look. This is the Van Gogh and this is the Cotman. This one's just a little bit more light red, I think. I like the Van Gogh better. Now across the board, they all have really good light fast ratings, with the exception of the Van Gogh Matter Lake Deep and the Van Gogh Permanent Lemon Yellow. Those are light fast rating 2, which according to their website still is really good. It's like 25 to 100 years under museum conditions, so it'll still last your lifetime. Oh, there's one more. The Van Gogh Payne's Gray is also light fast 2. All of the other ones are light fast 1. Now the Cotman system is a slightly different system. It's not a 1, 2, or 3 light fast rating. They go by A, B, C, and double A, like the Chinese white here, and the burnt sienna and the burnt umber and the ivory black. Those are the best possible light fast rating, so that means they'll literally last forever, probably because they're earth tones. And then all the rest are A. So the Cotman set, I think, beats out Van Gogh slightly in light fast ratings. I also really like the selection in the Cotman set. The Cotman set has a pink, it has just one green, which I think is really good. I was missing a warm yellow in this set, I'm not gonna lie. Van Gogh comes with 2 warm yellows, yellow ochre and this azo yellow medium. So yeah, that was kind of a downside in the Cotman set, was not having that warm yellow. You'll notice the difference between the two Chinese whites. They use different pigment numbers. Van Gogh used pigment white 4 and the Cotman set uses pigment white 5. The Cotman Chinese white is significantly more opaque, which I think is more useful if you like to use white in your paintings. I'm probably never going to use either of those. I just never use any kind of semi-transparent white. If I'm going to paint with white, I like it to be opaque. Now, taking a look at the blues in the sets, I thought this was interesting that the Van Gogh set included 2 blues that are really similar. PB29 is one of my favorite colors. It's ultramarine, standard pigment, I think, with any set. You just have to have an ultramarine blue. And you can see the 2 ultramarines between the Cotman and the Van Gogh are really similar, and they do use the same pigment number. But the Van Gogh Cobalt Blue Ultramarine uses PB29 just like ultramarine, but adds a pigment white in it. And to me, these are just a little too similar to be useful in a set. I appreciated that the Cotman set included a cerulean blue, which is very different from the ultramarine. I also like that the Cotman set came with permanent rose, whereas the Matter Deep is a little less light fast and a little less useful for the kind of paintings I like to do. The 2 reds, gorgeous. No complaints there. They're just so pretty. I was really impressed with the Van Gogh Yellow Ochre. I think the reason I like this Van Gogh Yellow Ochre so much is that it's the exact same pigment number as my Holbein Yellow Ochre, which is a professional paint. They're both PY42. And so when I painted out this swatch, I was like, oh, this feels really familiar. And that's because the Holbein Yellow Ochre is a standard color on my palette. I use it all the time. And so, of course, naturally, I really liked this one in the Van Gogh set. So if you want to save some money on your Yellow Ochre, go with Van Gogh. It's the exact same pigment. The 2 Payne's Grays, both really similar, totally different pigment numbers. I don't know how they do that. They make them look very similar with completely different pigments. The Van Gogh set came with 2 beautiful greens. I like the Cotman green better. I think the sap green is more useful for landscape paintings and things like that. This permanent green is just so bright. I'm not sure how much I would use that except to maybe mix it with other colors to mute it some more. After doing my swatches, I did do side-by-side paintings of this little cupcake topped with fruit using both the Cotman paints and the Van Gogh paints. Aside from differences in colors, there was no noticeable difference in quality of paint. I really enjoyed using both. I would say I liked using the larger brush with the Van Gogh set rather than the smaller one with Cotman, but they were both fabulous to work with. All told, if someone were to ask me, can you tell the difference between professional paints and student grade paints? If I had to do a blindfolded test painting with both professional paints and with the student grade paints, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the difference was. Honestly, I think these are such great quality for the price. They're a perfect choice for anyone wanting to start out with watercolors. So it's really up to you. The Van Gogh and the Cotman, they're both beautiful to paint with. I actually really enjoyed the brushes. I was surprised at how much I liked the brushes. Even the size 3. I think both of these were really good quality. The bristles stayed together. The water flowed nicely. I still prefer my silver black velvet brushes, but for brushes that come with a set, these weren't bad. Right, so in summary, I think if I had to choose between these two sets, I would say the Cotman set probably wins for me just because I like the color selection better. I like that it has burnt umber, it has a nice earthy green, it has two very different blues, two very different reds, and I feel like all of those colors are going to be really useful. When comparing it with the Van Gogh set, the only drawback for me was that it didn't come with a warm yellow. Now the Van Gogh set, really beautiful colors, high quality, no complaints there. The box doesn't close. I think that's going to be problematic, especially if you wanted to use this as your palette. The Cotman palette is better quality. It stays shut. You actually might use that. I liked the Van Gogh brush better. I like that it comes with a sponge. I love that it has yellow ochre and a nice warm yellow. I wish that it had more of an actual cobalt blue or a cerulean blue like the Cotman set has. I don't miss the fact that it doesn't have a black. Payne's gray is a great substitute for your dark. Instead of Chinese white, I wish it had come with a burnt umber like the Cotman set did. And the madder lake I would have substituted for a permanent rose like the Cotman set, which I think is why the Cotman set wins for me. By the way, if you're just getting started with watercolor, maybe you're still shopping for your supplies, I do use this Cotman set in my freebie. Make sure to download my free watercolor jumpstart guide. I'll leave a link in the description below. It's over 20 pages to help you get started with watercolor. It uses the Cotman set for all of the projects. It's totally free. Just check out the link below and you can download that now. All right, well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Let me know if there are any other products you'd like to see me compare or review. Leave me a comment and I'll see you in the next video.